Hello, welcome to the 25th day of August 2025. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation, a live video exercise that I do every morning around 5:30 a.m. I do this from my balcony here in my former Akiya, my former empty home here in Japan that my wife Yumiko and I bought about it's been a little over half a year ago. I'm a little exhausted. Yesterday was a tough day, so try to keep my footing, literally as I stand here. I'm really pushed to the edge the last couple of days. I don't have air conditioning in this room deliberately to see if I could make the summer without it. Kind of experience what life was like back in the old days. Although this house is not built for Japanese summers, it's a more modern house. It's the more traditional Japanese house would have the ways for the air to flow through. This second floor room really contains the heat. It's like being in a sauna sometimes. It really takes a lot out of me. Anyway, back on track. So I do this exercise, this video, to go over the objectives and principles that are outlined in my book, Going Alone, which you can read for free at goingalone.org. I am curious to see where I'm succeeding and failing in this endeavor so that I can tune myself accordingly and improve the cadence and the utility of my days. In fact, I came up with yesterday, despite the heat, despite being really not feeling good yesterday, came up with a new measure that I'm going to try. Let me make a note here, otherwise I might forget. Don't worry, I'm not sick. This is just the effects of the heat, which I'm become very familiar with now. Okay. Welcome to new subscribers to the channel. This is a live video, like I said, as such, and it's my own journal entry. So I'm at liberty to talk about anything I want for as long as I want, and in any way I like. That doesn't mean I don't care about what about you. It's just that the focus of this is it's like inviting people to look over my shoulder while I write in my diary. The focus is the diary. That's why I don't read comments while they're happening. I'll save reading and responding to comments till the end. Okay, and finally, a big thank you to YouTube viewers and those who watch my or who support me on YouTube and on Patreon. Whoa, my brain is just not with it. This is going to be a struggle to get through this morning. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is turn to my notes here and read what I've got written down about yesterday. Not surprisingly, some of these notes are very illustrative of just how difficult yesterday was because of the lack of air conditioning. The first note says, brutal takedown, but very satisfying in hindsight. Yeah, it's satisfying as long as I was sitting down, but now that I'm standing up, I'm not in good shape. The second note says, I worked and I loved it. I did work yesterday in the midst of the heat, and I did enjoy that experience. And then a third note here says, peace in being beaten down. Isn't that a strange thing? You know, the way that I feel right now, I don't feel sick, but I feel like I've been beat up. Is the same way that I would feel after I would have those extended hikes in the desert in the summer. Extended means in the summer in Japan, in the United States means 30 minutes. That's an extended hike. Could almost kill you out there at those temperatures, 115, 110, 112 degrees. I felt great then, even though I was like beaten up. I feel like right now, I feel like a boxer who's come out of the ring, and the opponent has beaten the crap out of me, but I feel good because I was in there fighting. That's exactly how I feel right now. I am really worn out, but I feel very good. And this might be revealing something about me. It's the same way that I feel good about working. Even though work is very hard, I relish the feeling after a hard day. Although I don't want the stress anymore. The good thing is I can have all of those as long as it doesn't kill me. Okay, I think I've talked enough about the last 24 hours. My creed consists of 8 objectives, and this is where I'm going to try something new. I'm going to try to name each objective. This is the first time I've ever done this. I'm going to try to name each of the 8 objectives, and then I'm going to ask myself, how did I do in the last 24 hours relative to that? So that I have metrics by which I can gauge the quality of the prior day. And what I'll do then is I'll remember, sometimes I give the day star rating. I'll give the day a star rating from 1 to 5 stars relative to how I did my report card on these 8 objectives. The first objective is to be always ready to die, to have my affairs, my relationships, and my life's work in good shape. So how did I do? Was I ready to die yesterday? Definitely. Yeah, I have my home. I have my life in ship shape, ready for death. So check for that one. I need a way. Maybe I need to find a way to measure this. I'll just put number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So objective number 1 gets solid rating. I'll just put a check mark there. Objective number 2, the good and effective use of time. Did I make good use of my time yesterday? This is an interesting one. Well, I spent time with my wife, and not just any time. We weren't killing time. We went out to Kanohi Do coffee shop, and we had some very good conversations of the sort that my wife and I have. She and I don't really talk about this kind of stuff. We talk about other things. We have other um, folio of topics to talk about that are the things that she's interested in, that we share interests in. She's not really interested in. Well, it's funny. It's not that she's not interested in this stuff. It's just that she doesn't have to work at this the way I do. All this stuff, and maybe this is part and parcel of being, a Showa Japanese. It just kind of comes natural. So, but how did I do with time? I spent good time with my wife. I worked hard on one listing. I'm very pleased with that listing. I forced myself to sit and in front of the fan, during the hottest hours of the day, because I don't have air conditioning, deliberately. I want to see how I can do, if I can handle the summer heat without air conditioning. And I'm learning that it's not easy. I'm paying a price for this experiment. And I forced myself to sit through the hottest part of the day, which was good. And then what happened, something really interesting came as a result of that. I went out we had a family function yesterday with a Japanese family here. We went out to a pretty fancy sushi restaurant and had a family dinner. And I was at a deep, deep sense of peace during that time. It's like having the crap beat out of me pulled me back from the edge of active engagement. So you know what it was like? Okay, normally, imagine we're like, this is another side effect of the heat. It gives me like like rashes, heat rashes, and I have to scratch my skin a lot. Try not to do that. Okay, imagine like we're a group of Spartan warriors, and in almost every moment throughout the day, I find myself pressing forward to the front of the phalanx. Is it a phalanx? I don't know. I think it's a phalanx. Okay, man, let me through. I want to be in the front. And I get my shield out and my spike, or whatever it's called, my thing, and I get in the connected line with the other men. And there's the soldiers behind, and I'm going forward. And I'm always like that. I'm always pressing to the front. I don't want to be behind anyone else. I want to be at the heat of the battle. I want to see the other warriors' faces and engage them fully. But yesterday, and I'm still feeling it now, I was so beat up by the heat yesterday that in the afternoon, going out for this big engagement with the family, I, for one of the rare times in my life, because being even out dining with the family is war of a sort, right? Because it's a war. Even there's a quote. Maybe I'll share it today. I think I made a meme for it. Um, Odin. Odin is a god, and he takes many forms. He's the god of war, the god of um, you know the feast. He's also the god of the gallows. He's also the king of gods in his particular pantheon. There's a quote from Odin that says, and I'm going to butcher the quote. He who can, the greatest thing that you can achieve in a feast is to return from the feast with your wits intact. It's a heavy, heavy quote, and it's an interesting idea. Usually you think of a philosopher quotes, we're thinking of Epictetus and Seneca and their observations about about self-control. And I guess Odin's is also. Of course, Odin didn't write that. Someone attributed it to Odin. I guess this is also relative to self-control. I guess the most interesting philosophy quotes I like are the ones that are related, that have Stoic premises. But think about that again. Odin said, the greatest thing we can return from a feast with is having our wits. Returning from a feast with our wits intact is the greatest thing you can achieve at a feast. Yesterday at the feast, I was ready to go out. I put on some nice clothes, got in the car with my wife, headed out to meet the family, showed up this beautiful sushi restaurant, and I had moved my way to the front of the phalanx, the sword and the shield, the pike and the shield, my short sword and the scabbard, ready to take on the night as a poorly spoken Japanese speaker, foreigner living amongst the Japanese. And because I was so beat up from the heat, I felt the moment. And as we were sitting down at the table, and I was seated opposite my father-in-law, and the whole family, not just Yoko, but my brother-in-law, his wife, and their son, and it was a big group. And I felt myself suddenly turning to the soldier behind me and saying, "Soldier, Spartan, can you take my position? Can we trade places?" And I stepped away, and the Spartan behind me, young, capable man, came forward, and I kind of moved back, a line or two, and I sat in the back of the phalanx and let the evening proceed. This is the result of this third line here, which is, peace in being beaten down. I was so beat up yesterday that I finally found a little peace in yielding the fight on grounds of incapacity. I hate to be always thinking about myself in these videos. However, this is a journal entry. That's a heavy-duty observation. Maybe this helped me to understand why I'm struggling so much with retirement and the peace and the freedom of retirement. It's a little like, the peace and freedom of this retirement is a little like being a Spartan warrior with no war to fight. What do you know about that? There's the heavy observation again, to say that. So how did I do then? Because remember, this is where I'm giving myself a score on my metrics. How did I do with the good utilization of time? Well, I got up in the morning, I did all the things I needed to do. I had a great breakfast with my wife. I tuned my attention to the things that she and I share common interest with. I don't bring to my wife the things like I talk about here that would bore her to tears. So we talk about, I know what my wife's interested in, we talk about those things. We talked about that. I worked. I retreated from the heat. The heat beat me up nonetheless. I went out and I engaged with the family. Oh, and then on top of that, I went out for the bokeh ball practice, whatever the hell it's called. I can't remember what it's called. And I did that from 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock last night. Now, this is the guy that goes to bed at 8:30, and I was beat up. And I was dizzy at the Pokeball practice. I thought I was going to fall over a couple of times, but I didn't. I don't think anybody except my wife would have perceived that, because I carried on through it and I did my duty and I came home without complaint. Yesterday was an incredibly good use of time, well utilized, not just because I completed a lot, but because I carried myself through it and I managed myself through it really well, especially noting the fact about the brutal takedown. And then I found peace by being broken down and being able to retreat back from the front. Good use of time yesterday. So number 1 and number 2, check marks, yes. Number 3 is to develop and maintain the third objective. Remember, I'm scoring myself. The third objective is to develop and maintain good and sound. Sound meaning they can sustain the assault of reason. They're not based on fallacies, objectives, and principles in my book. And I worked on them yesterday. I did this whole exercise, which is when I do it, and I think about it. And I actually made some notes yesterday. I even wrote a poem relative to it. So yeah, I did that for sure. Number 4, the fourth objective is to cultivate good emotional reactions so that I respond well when things are difficult. And I responded really well throughout the day, one thing after another. And I retreat back to silence. I've discovered this, could I call it a hiding place, when I'm not up to the task of taking on the world, not up to the task of being the Spartan at the front. I retreat back a little bit and I go silent. And I do it in a way that I try to avoid making anybody feel uncomfortable. Going to silence is a good thing. You can get away with it get away with it. You can do it quite well here in Japan. They're used to it here. The Japanese are quite adept at holding their tongue when they have nothing to say. The fifth objective is to do good things throughout the day relative to my values. Well, I don't think I was really challenged much yesterday to have opportunity. I didn't find many opportunities to exercise decisions and actions in the direction of virtue. So I'm going to give myself a null. So I'll give myself a check if I did it, a null if I didn't have a chance, and then an X if I failed. Number 6 is to recognize my true limits and true opportunities. I was doing that all day long yesterday, constantly recognizing my limits and opportunities. Even so far, I was like visualizing it throughout the day. When I was with my in the morning walking the dogs, I was doing it, thinking about the limits of exertion and keeping myself within. Doing it while I was at work, deciding to work after I talked with my wife over breakfast, and we went out and she helped me to pick a product to list. I was doing this in spades during dinner, recognizing that I was beat up and that I didn't have a lot to offer the family or the conversation, and just sitting there quietly, smiling, answering any pointed questions that were asked of me, commenting on the meal, congratulating my father-in-law for his birthday, and carrying on the sort. So I'd say I did a good job with that. Number 7 is to do just one thing at a time and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully. I did that throughout the day, check mark. And number 8 is keeping my balance. Even though I was dizzy, I kept my balance, literally, physically, and mentally. So I would say yesterday, in terms of measuring the day according to my values, according to the objectives, what better measure could there possibly be than one's own objectives? I gave myself 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 star, 7 check marks, and 1 null, where I wasn't challenged. It was a good day. Now that I've done that, maybe that'll give me some peace today, because that's what it kind of runs down to. Every day I'm asking myself, am I ready to die today? And the answer is always yes, but it's a qualified yes, because if I'm still alive, then if I really, really was told I was going to be dead in less than 24 hours, I'd probably be engaged in a few interesting things to wrap things up. That's the thing that kind of background process that's always running in my head. Okay, let's carry on now to enough of the notes, enough of the creed. Oh, I forgot to read. I forgot to read one of the principles. I think I'm on. It's time to read principle number 3. I think. We did reason yesterday. Oh no, it's number 4. Anchorhold. Yesterday I talked about I read about the homunculus, which is the mental instantiation of a little man inside my head, the consciousness that will die with me, the substitute for a soul, which I don't believe we have. So the homunculus was yesterday's principle number 3. Today, principle number 4 is the Anchorhold, the home of the homunculus, the little retreat within the cranium. It's not real, this is just made up, where my consciousness seems to exist. I think we all feel it. It feels like it's right behind our forehead, kind of right behind here, peeking out through our eyes, listening through our ears, running the controls. That's the Anchorhold where the homunculus lives. It's based on a real term. Look it up if you like. It's really interesting to learn what an Anchorhold really is. It's a religious term. Anchorhold, the place where we suffer and die. There is an inward architecture which we create through the fact and consequence of our decisions and actions, which becomes the scaffolding and structure of the inner man or woman who others may dimly see when they look us square in the eyes, perceiving a light or darkness within which shines or empties in proportion to the effort we have made to not just live, but to live well, and in accord with our perceived nature and better inclination. We fail utterly when we build our inner world solely guided by the prescribed blueprint precedent of others, which guidance may suffice to create grand and stately outward living, but may leave us inwardly hollow and empty in the end, when we are alone within our outer world, and we look at what we have and do possess and have made, and we wonder what we may have seemingly missed, and if somehow there may be more. Why are we so outwardly filled yet so inwardly empty? Our home, then, a stable and impressive castle of outward success and seemingly worthwhile achievement and acclaim, resting upon an inner foundation of shifting sand. Remembering that I have that place and that place exists, and that its structure is nothing more than biology animated of energy, containing a consciousness that is as mortal as my body. All right, let's finish now with the next 24 hours. It's a Sunday. I've got nothing to do today. Nothing I have to do. Although I do. I'm going to go play the buckle ball at 8:30. It starts at 9, so I need to preserve some energy for that. Other than that, the day is free. I'll see how it unfolds. Freedom. I'm not comfortable with freedom. I do not enjoy freedom. I know that's a ridiculous thing to say, in fact, but there it is. And at this time, which is probably about 5:53, I'd say, it is now 25 degrees, just like it was yesterday, and 84% humidity. Almost identical to yesterday. It was 25 and 85 yesterday. Let's read comments, and then I'm going to wrap up. Hi, Michael. Hi, Low Iceberg. Good morning, Tim. Tim reports 18.1 C and 63%. Pretty nice. You're in the green there. Tim says, talking of the weather, I'm thinking of getting air conditioning in the house for next year. Never thought I would say that for the UK. 4th heat wave here this year and becoming the norm. Yikes. Tim goes on, might be as getting older, but the heat gets harder to cope with. Sounds crazy for the UK. Yeah, that does. But I can relate to the difficult, they're harder to get used to. But I worried Tim about, descending into the familiar comfort of air conditioning, and will that only, for myself, will that only heighten my weakness? Will it compound it? Will it heighten it? You know what I mean? Like I see these older men my age, our age, Tim, out here working, just down here, the construction site down the street. There's an old guy out there, he's my age. He's out there in the heat of the day doing construction stuff, and I see him all the time. So are those guys like that because they never gave up, because they never yielded to to comfort? Hello, Julie BBB. 70 Fahrenheit and 66 humidity here. Okay, 70. That sounds pretty nice, actually. 66 humidity is really nice. 70 is beautiful temperature. Julie says, by Jove, I think he's got it. I wonder what that's referring to. Tim says, I don't think retirement automatically brings inner peace and freedom. It helps in a way by taking away certain stresses to aid peace. But its peace and freedom is a slow adaptation for me and didn't hit me on the first day of retirement. Well, I'll tell you this, Tim, and I haven't mentioned this very often because it feels like I'm compromising people's privacy. Since I've been doing this very public retiring in Japan for more than half a year now, and since I'm very open about the fact that I'm struggling with retirement, remember I talk about I get lots of cards and letters from people who write to me behind the scenes to talk to me about their experiences and give me comments. I can't tell you how many people have written to me. In fact, just last week I had another one that are describing the exact same thing. Retirement is a struggle, and it seems to be a very common thing that many people are just simply afraid to talk about because it sounds like you're ungrateful. It sounds weird to say, here I'm free and I don't know what to do with it, and I'm not comfortable with it. But so many people. So it's been very edifying for me to learn that I'm not alone, and also it helps encourage me to be open and honest about it and to talk about it. Julie says, it took me a year to adjust to retirement, but it turned out fantastic. That's terrific. I'm glad to hear that, Julie. I get that kind of a comment sometimes as well from people who say, just give it time, Kurt. You're still a newbie. It's going to take you some time. I'm hoping that'll be the case with me. Tim says, I find in retirement that I still have to find a similar amount of busyness as when I was working, and I wonder if that is stopping me from certain inner peace, a little like the art of relaxing, which I still find it a little difficult in retirement. That's funny. I was having the similar thoughts about that yesterday, Tim, and I was saying, I know I was kind of vociferous in the last couple of days in my videos here saying, I don't want any damn hobbies. You can take your hobbies and shove it, right? I wasn't talking to any of you. I'm just saying, hobbies in general. And then I was kind of, sitting with myself in the sweltering heat. I think it was yesterday, and I was saying, am I being ridiculous? Am I, especially given that I know that there's nothing. I've already gone to the edge. I've gone to the edge of the deep water wilderness. I know what's not out there. Why am I so insistent on continuing to gaze at the emptiness as the clock ticks? Why don't I just go buy a fishing pole? I keep threatening to do that. Why don't I go buy a fishing pole and start fishing? I mean, really. So I doubt myself all the time. I can be. It was Emerson who said, speak today with hard words, and then speak tomorrow with hard words too, even if they contradict everything you said today. So what if you contradict yourself? How bad is that? And then he goes on to add, and I've repeated this many times in my videos. I love this quote from Emerson, that a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. I find it difficult I still find it difficult in retirement, Tim adds. I don't find being busy and relaxed. Tim, I said that I hope that I'm going to be okay in a year. I don't think I am, because I know you're well ahead of me, Tim. I think you and I are cut of the same cloth, Tim. Whatever you're feeling now, because I think you're 2+ years into retirement, I think I'm going to be there right there with you. Based on our interactions here, I feel very akin to you in spirit and in practice. I'm kind of not. I'm watching you, senpai. I'm watching as you go. I'm trying to learn from you. Julie says, I don't find being busy and relaxed to be mutually exclusive. Busy and relaxed to be mutual. Oh, so you can be busy and relaxed. Oh, interesting. I wouldn't say that I'm not relaxed when I'm busy. I'm happy when I'm busy. Very, very, very happy when I'm busy. Like the same way, I'm very happy when I'm cleaning the house. I'm very happy when I'm busy on my commute, when I used to be on my commute to work. I'm very happy working up my little business here. What I'm not happy doing is sitting idly. I mean, that leads me to, and I'll use the word, that leads me down the road towards depression. So I usually don't get to depression because I stand up and go find something to do. Julie BBB says, I was referring to how you found some peace in letting another Spartan take the lead. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to I'm going to try to lean into that more. But it's funny, Julie, I could only get there through sheer exhaustion. You know, it's like, in another strange analogy would be like a wrestler, you know, wrestler in the wrestling team that just can't tap out until all his energy is drawn, right? And it's really hard to get me to the point that all my energy is drawn. Julie adds that is a key to retirement, letting others take the lead. Okay, I'm going to remember that. Thank you for that observation, Julie. Tim says, think you're right on the heat thing. It's been a lot hotter here than last year, but I find the longer the heat spells, the more you start to slowly adjust and accept it, just thinking if that will get harder with age. Yeah, it's kind of like a thing, right? Because I elected not to get air conditioning in this room this summer because I wanted to see if I could survive at age 61, this dreaded Japanese heat that everybody's talking about. And I am. I'm not surviving it very well, but I am surviving it. But I do know that when I go downstairs, for example, and she has air conditioning. My wife, she tends to spend her time downstairs, and I spend it up here during the day. We have separate lives, even though we've been married for a long time. We basically live very separate lives. She has the air conditioner down there. I come back up to this room and I feel like the air conditioner robbed me of something. Even though I'd come back a little more vital, I feel like it took away some of my, as Austin Powers would say, some of my mojo. And I think if I get an air conditioner and I start using it every summer, that mojo is going to slip away and I won't even know it's gone. But I'll see those old men that are out there, driving their trucks and working the thing, and I'll say, yeah, only to be like that. Tim says, the two old ladies you see each morning perhaps give some hope in coping as you age. Yeah, they're a study in living well in old age. I'm particularly noting how they always have one another to riff off of. They seem to always have a lot of energy. And here's an interesting observation: they have no time for younguns like me. I mean, they're late in their 70s, and I've noticed that about a lot of particularly very old people who seem to have gone successfully into retirement. They like live in another country now. It's a country called old age, maybe, where they haven't got time for young people like me and my foolishness. The reason I say that is that they're so in depth in their own thing that I'll go by and I'll say good morning, and they'll basically just turn to me and give me a yeah, whatever. You nod and off they go, right? There's Evelyn. Separate lives. I have the same situation. I love it. We actually have very little in common, but it works for us. Yeah, it's Yumiko and I have, I would say, the thing that we have in common is the most important thing, which is our values. Like, even though Yumiko hasn't codified her values in any way, she hardly ever even needs to think about it. She's told me, she said, her religion is being Japanese. That's a quote from Yumiko. Being Japanese gives you a code of values, which works well if they sit well with you. They can be a torture if you're someone who the values of the Japanese doesn't sit well with, and you were raised here and you live here. It's a torture for sure. But it works well for Yumiko. And the one thing that we do share that I think has been very valuable to us is our deep values. I mean, I can rely on her. I think everything for the most part in my book would be reflected in some way in the way my wife chooses to live her life, although she would never give so much thought to it, useless thought to it. It's like she doesn't need to. It's just there on the tip of her head. Otherwise, we have almost nothing in common, except the fact that we split our genes down in sharing. We put our genes together in the making of our daughter. We have nothing in common otherwise. Although, since retiring, we are gaining more, since coming back to Japan, we're gaining more in common. We're contriving our way towards it, but willingly so. The old house, the garden, so to speak, and some of the just the simple things we like to do. Like we like to go out to eat together. We used to like to go to movies. Maybe we'll start doing that again. But otherwise, nothing. It's just fine. All right. Tim says they perhaps, referring to the two old women, they perhaps egg each other on as they age. You know, I think you're right about that, Tim. I think that there's something to that about the, having a cohort to do this with. And I feel like I've kind of found that with all of you here, right? Especially those of us who are of the same rough age group and, facing down the freedom and the challenges of retirement. Thank you for being that for me. I appreciate that because I really don't have that here. So, or anywhere else. So we are those, together we are those old women walking down the street of life and enjoying our banter. And with that, I think I've reached the end. I'll sign off for now. It's good to see everybody. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, whatever what day it is, if it's a Sunday or a Saturday or whatever. I wish you all the best. Be safe but not too safe. Take care.